2016 is set to be one of the biggest years ever for Ducati, as the firm is set to release 9 new bikes for the riding public. The latest is this one, the all-new 959 Panigale, which replaces the outgoing 899. The 959 builds on the platform of the 899 but comes with more torque and more power, plus you get the electronics package that made the original such a great machine. So with this in mind, we ventured to the MotoGP circuit at Valencia in Spain to give the new bike a bit of a squeeze.
So some days you have good days on the bike, some days you have bad, other days you have great. This is one of the latter because we've just been out riding the new 959 Ducati Panigale. This is the replacement to the 899 Panigale and basically continues Ducati's sort of evolution of the Panigale series. Well, we've had the 1299 in the previous year, and now we also have this baby. Now, if you really want to know how to go fast, you've got to learn to ride one of these things first. This thing is such an easy bike to ride. I mean, I say easy, it's still fast. I mean, we're not kidding ourselves here. They're talking 157 odd horsepower at the crank. But the best thing about this bike is it's unintimidating. You can hop on this thing, you can really, really have a good go at it. It's like, like a good Supersport 600 bike. It's not going to bite you in the same way that a 1299 will, for example. It's got similar electronics to what the 1299 does. It doesn't have the adjustability, the ease of adjustability like you have with the Superbike. Like, it doesn't have the toggle switch on the side of the handlebar, which it's a bit of a pain because it does take a while to change your map settings and do all that. But the basic chassis has been changed. You've got a 4mm lower swing arm pivot. Now, that makes it a lot more stable, and particularly on the exit of corners, you can really drive this thing off the corner, full gas the thing. I mean, like, it's so stable, it's such a delight to get on the throttle, because another great thing about this new generation of Panigales, particularly the 959 here, is that initial throttle opening, which had really hurt Ducatis in the past, it's almost Japanese 4-cylinder kind of levels of smoothness now. Like, you can get on that throttle and you can open it absolutely minuscule amounts, and whereas old Ducatis used to sort of cough and splutter a little bit, this one will just pick the revs up, get the weight on that rear tyre, and then it's just up to you how hard you want to squeeze it on. Now, it's very, very stable under braking as well. We ran a couple of sessions with ABS on the road setting, so there's 3 settings: there's rain, sport and race. The standard ABS settings, which you get for the road, they're no good for the track. Once you start getting into really starting to push it, particularly the bumps here at Valencia, the bumps really confuse the system, and you'll find you'll go trail braking into the corner and then the pads will come flying off, and it's not really a nice feeling. Put the settings to the race mode, and look, you're good to go. The gearbox is very nice. It doesn't have the up and down quick shift. It's only on the up. So that would have been nice to see that, but it's a road bike, so it's first and foremost a road bike. That's the other thing. This isn't really based off a race bike, and Ducati's not entering it in any form of race series, save of course for the one make series over in England for the British Championship. Now, with the engine itself, the stroke's been increased. You've got a new, they've changed the airbox air filter. Where it's better than the old 99 is around, so they've shown us a graph before, it's about 4,000 to 9,000 RPM. It's 5,000 RPM worth of power curve there, and it's marketably different, and it's really grunty off corners. Like, you can come out of corners in what you wouldn't think would be, you'd think you'd be a bit too high, maybe too high a gear and too low revs, but you can wind it on and it will climb through the revs quite nicely. It doesn't really lag behind too much, and yeah, once you start getting used to that really sweet little gearbox, and just up and down, it makes for a really, really good bike. Now, it's 8%. It's got 8% more torque. Now, that's going to be a big factor in making this a good road bike. It means that you don't have to work the gearbox quite as hard as you normally would. But you also have the lightness of this chassis, which when you compare it to a superbike, a little bit dimensionally, it's a little bit smaller, but you'll be able to sort of dart in and out of traffic quite well. Now, realistically, I mean, I'm a big fan of super sport bikes and that kind of thing, and I tend to think that these bikes are quite underrated. Now, for a road bike, this makes absolutely perfect sense. This is as fast as you're ever going to need for a road bike. But the best thing is the chassis is so light and nimble and easy to handle that you can just carve up corners, like you'll carve canyon roads way better than you will on probably a bigger bike, unless you're of a very high caliber rider. It's a bit of a thinking man's sports bike, if you want to put it like that. But yeah, look, I'm absolutely wrapped. The more I rode it, the more I liked it. It was very comfortable, great engine, good gearbox. ABS needed to be switched back to the lowest setting because it was a bit intrusive on the track, but on the road that shouldn't be an issue. But yeah, I mean, look, it's a pretty cool bike. I mean, it's if you get on this thing and you don't have a smile on your face, I mean, far out, you're a pretty hard person to please. But yeah, a really good bike from Ducati, great thing.